Welcome to this episode of the High on God podcast. We're back. We're going to have a special guest with us this week. Shane Runnels is going to join us, and we're excited about that. Shane's been a good buddy of ours for a while, so we'll get into that in a minute. But just want to let Zach share with you. We were kind of starting out our podcast with a recommendation segment. And so, Zach, you got any books, music, or just any resources that you want to recommend to our High on God audience here, things that get us all jacked up on Jesus?
Yeah, absolutely. So one song that I listened to this week that I would love to recommend is by Amanda Lindsay Cook. And I think a lot of our listeners are already familiar with some of her music, but the song Evergreen is a beautiful song. Just a great song. Great picture of God's unconditional love. The way that the light of His love shines in any situation that you might be facing. The way that He brings Himself into your circumstances with a fresh newness that is incomplete. It doesn't care at all about what you might be going through. He doesn't care what you might be going through as far as if it's bad or anything like that. He just brings Himself. He brings Himself into your situation, and He brings that fresh newness to any circumstance.
I love that album.
Yeah.
That whole album, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, He filters, the light of the gospel filters all of your perceptions of what you're going through into this beautiful new experience of revitalization. So it's a beautiful reminder of that song. And yeah, a book that I'd like to recommend, and I've mentioned it on the podcast before, is The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis. It has a lot of whack on it. There's a lot of books about life after death, people having visions of heaven or of hell, but I think that C.S. Lewis accomplishes something different in this book. He shows a picture of the afterlife from less of a literal standpoint, or less of a sort of going up and seeing exactly how things are standpoint, and he approaches it from a more allegorical slant, and he shows the love of God through relationships in a unique way, and the redemptive quality of relationships, how He moves and works through relationships in a living way as the Word of God. And there's beautiful interactions in that book that brought me a lot of awakening or healing in areas of my life, showing how unconditional God's love is and far-reaching, and how much it is expressed through our human interactions. So it's a great book. Yep.
Yeah, thanks, Zach.
Sure.
Awesome. Well, check those resources out, and we're going to jump into our interview with Shane. So going to get him on the line here, and hope you enjoy it. Thanks so much, guys. So we are here with Shane Runnels, one of our good friends from Nashville, Tennessee. A lot of glory on Shane. Really appreciate him. He's got a book out called Ecstatic Life.
Yeah.
And known Shane for I don't know how many years, maybe 6 or 7 years now.
Something like that. Yeah.
So we've just been excited to connect with Shane. He's a mystic. He's a Jesus, loves the gospel, and just to hear from him. And so kind of, one of our themes lately has just been asking people, like, what are some of your high on God experiences? What are some of your favorite times with the Lord? Just little testimonies, things that could whet people's appetite for what they could experience. And so yeah, man, just love to hear your heart, bro. Thanks for being on.
Dude, absolutely. It's my pleasure. I'm pretty sure I invited myself, so. Well, hold on. Let me find an experience really quickly. Maybe I should pull from High on God. Hold on. Maybe not. Oh, wait. Hold on. Maybe find an experience. Mystics of the Christian tradition. Maybe this is a good one to pull from.
No cheating. It has to be.
No cheating? Wait, you're saying I can't pull it from the ecstasy of loving God? No.
change the names.
Maybe from Dancing with Jesus.
Okay, that one. Now
There we go. All right, that's fine.
All right, that's the final one. That's the final joke I'll make. Okay. So, oh yeah, okay. So I'll just start from the beginning. When I was a kid, I didn't really like grow up like in the church. I mean, my mom would like bring me to church, but like my earliest memory of being in church was like waking up on a pew and like looking around, and there were these like teenagers that would like scoff at me, you know, like, oh, he was sleeping, you know.
like a homeless person, basically. Then.
Yes. Yes, I love the homeless anointing. Yes. Yeah, but I also dabbled in, like, I was like interested in spirituality later on though. Like, I also dabbled in like the occult stuff and like looking into like demonology. I was a ghost hunter for a while, and now I don't believe in any of that stuff. But
you don't believe in ghosts, brother?
I don't believe in ghosts, not at all. No. I believe in
our next podcast.
Oh, really? I believe in psychosis. I believe in. I believe that if you walk into a house that's absolutely completely dark, expecting to see something or hear something, you will. So, yeah. Sure. So I was always like into like the weird spiritual stuff, and then I started. I'll just tell you my first encounter with Jesus. So I was in high school. I was a senior in high school, and the English teacher was like, "Hey, I want you to write." It was our final essay, and I want you to write about a specific scenario in history. And I was like, what a wonderful time to write about my Lord, I think, you know. And so I decided to write about the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, and at first I handed him in the essay, and he was just like, well, you can't just use the Bible as your sources. And I was like, but I used 4-5 books from the Bible as my source. And he was like, no, you gotta go out and you gotta figure out what crucifixion practices, you know, they did. And because the Bible is pretty gruesome, but when you really look into what the Romans and what the Jews were doing, I mean, the Romans were relentless. And so I was writing this essay, and I was sitting on my bed one night, and it just crushed me, dude. Like to realize exactly what Jesus went through. Well, have a glimpse of it, you know, of what Jesus went through to reveal the Father to me, you know. And back then, I thought, you know, I grew up in the South, so like in the Bible Belt, I'm still in the Bible Belt. Baptist churches where it was all penal substitution, so I didn't really realize that he was revealing the Father. I thought, you know, like he was being crushed under the wrath of God and stuff. But so while writing this, it just like really crushed me just on the inside, and like, dude, I just started like bawling my eyes out just because I couldn't understand exactly why this perfect person would give his life for me, you know, and why this individual would go through such pain, give up wine mixed with myrrh, give up any kind of numbing agent, and feel everything, bleed, he sweat drops of blood because of the stress of what he was about to go through. And I just couldn't get it. Like, I just couldn't wrap my head around it, but I knew I was thankful. I was very thankful, but I was also just screaming. I was screaming. I was like crying out, like, why? And then I was on my knees, and this is my first encounter with Jesus that I remember. You know, like there are those times in your life where you're pretty sure Jesus was talking to you, but you weren't aware. But this is the one where I was incredibly aware. And I was on my knees, and I felt like heart palpitations. Like I was feeling so like undone, just wrecked, and like in so much pain. And then I felt a mystical hand enter into my chest and like grab my heart, and like I just felt this warmth just go all through my body, and I felt and I heard, not audibly but in the spirit, it was a still small voice, but it wasn't that small.
Yeah.
I heard
It
and
was a quiet
voice
time.
say, "I did it for you, and you were worth it." And in that
Jesus.
moment, I look back now, and like now I have like references for mystical encounters, but like back then I didn't. And I had also been going to a church, and they had like been speaking in tongues, and I was like, this is stupid, this is weird, this is and Shabbat now. But like they were speaking in tongues, and like and so I knew that was a thing, and like in this moment, like my jaw is like just dropped, and like tears are going down my face. And then my tongue starts like flapping around in my mouth. And I immediately went, no,
Not
I was
me.
like, I don't
You're not gonna become one of them.
I don't want it.
Make it stop.
Yeah, but that was I believe like that was the moment that I actually became a Christian, like
Wow.
where Jesus like entered into my situation, and he like really entered in. Like when he grabbed my heart, it let me know that I was going to be okay, because I was literally feeling like my heart like was just racing. I couldn't handle it. And so I think that my entire life I've just been learning what that means, what he said to me in that moment. I did it for you, and you were worth it, and yeah, that was my first one.
Love it, bro. Was that around the same time you were like studying the crucifixion thing, or was that like that
was the exact night? I was
yeah.
writing the essay, and
Wow.
Sorry, I was writing the essay, and like it broke me. It was just crushed, dude. I still think about it.
You were at home in your room, or you were?
I was at home
in your room, just like reading about Jesus, just studying about Jesus.
Yeah. I was reading about him, and I was also reading what the Cat of Nine Tails was, and how like I think it's in John where Mary can't even recognize him anymore. And I think that honestly, it says that the Roman soldiers were beating him, and they ripped out his beard, and like what comes with Zach, if I ripped out your
he doesn't refer to me here.
I know you've been trying for years.
You couldn't refer to me. It's okay.
When you rip off facial hair, or you rip off clumps of it, what comes with that? Skin, like it's just
your back hair in that one.
Yeah.
You went this way.
Daily experience.
Yeah, so whenever you think about exactly what Jesus would have looked like after all of that torture, it's just meat on a tree.
Yes.
And I remember I had one teacher who told me like it was the worst crucifixion anyone ever went through. And when you really add up all of the things, it wasn't a regular crucifixion. It was something absolutely terrible. And to the point where they were surprised, shoot, what's his name? He was surprised how long or how quickly Jesus died. But if he would have Pontius Pilate. If he would have been there to see exactly what he was going through, he wouldn't be surprised at all, Yeah.
I love that. I love that story. I didn't know which ones you were going to share, but it reminds me of kind of the mystics of old. Some of my favorite ones where they would just kind of go into that crucifixion scene, man, and there's just so much tangible love, and just the blood flowing, and just to see exactly what you're describing. It's like, man, I think that's an encounter that's for everybody, really, that each one of us gets to have our time where we really see what he did for us personally. And man, and I encourage any of our viewers or whatever, look up some, like what are the showings of Julian is one of the old mystics that had some of these encounters with Christ at the cross, or of course, Teresa Villa and St. John of the Cross, some of these, St. Julian of Norwich, I think.
That's what I was wondering if you were that's who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a little book called The Showings of Julian, or it's hammered.
What was the next sort of thing you remember after that, as far as like mystical encounter or getting high or
Oh
about
yeah.
Jesus?
Well, so after that, I didn't really press in much.
Thank God.
God. I mean, I did. I mean, there was definitely a charismatic history in my background. I mean, honestly, there was a time when I used to lock myself in my room and rock back and forth and say, "Faith, faith."
Yeah, really? That's amazing.
I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
just, I mean, I took what these crazy charismatic preachers said, and I put it to action, and then you realize that they don't do any of those things.
yeah. Yeah, I've been
Uh,
there, man. I definitely
Hopefully
have
they
times
don't.
like that. Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, so the next one it was actually after I moved up here. Well, I was living in Murfreesboro, which is a suburb of Nashville. And I live in Nashville now. Well, Antioch, whatever. I was living in Murfreesboro, and I was sitting in a church, and like I was, and it was like it was a charismatic church because like I've always just been like into the weird, like whatever is weird. It's like that's my first love, you know. Sometimes I have to apologize to Jesus, you know, like I really want to just get weird, you know.
As if you could be weirder than Jesus.
I know, as if you can get weirder
There
than
he is. There he is.
I know.
This is becoming the theme of our podcast, is the plastic Jesus now.
Yeah.
Coming out. It's 2 in a row.
It's required now.
the dancing Jesus. I have just the adult Jesus that just stays.
Wow.
We can bring in the baby Jesus. This is my favorite.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The infant version.
Yeah. So the next one, I was sitting in a charismatic church in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. I won't share any church names or anything, but there was a specific leader that I'm pretty sure you know, and he was preaching. I don't even remember what he was preaching about. And in this church, I was seeing people fall out. People were talking about giant like gemstones popping out of their butts, you know, like all kinds of just weird things. It's the Lord. And so like I'm loving it, but also kind of like hating it and like resenting these people because like they're experiencing stuff that like I've only experienced on drugs and on alcohol and stuff, and I was like what the heck, you know, why not me? And it's not that I really wanted it because I've had desires in my heart to even hear the audible voice of God, and then I'm like no, you know, it's just kind of scary. But like, so I'm listening to him preach, and he's not even saying anything funny, or anything, but I just start giggling, you know, and then I start laughing, and then I start laughing hysterically, and this older lady who invited me to the church. She's amazing, and she invited me to the church, and she just was like, she pointed at me and said, "Oh, you're getting it," and I was like, "I don't know what I'm getting, but it's great."
She'd been there.
Yeah,
There's always an older lady that's been there in the glory. You know what I mean?
Yes.
They've seen it all.
Cloud of witnesses, the one
Thank
still
God.
living.
Thank God for 'em, yeah.
Yeah, and like after that, I just like it was just kind of effortless. I would wake up drunk. I would go to sleep drunk. I would just like, and I remember one time it was soon after this. I was sitting in our house in Murfreesboro, and I opened up the Bible to Matthew, and I was reading the genealogy. I was reading about Mary, and I was reading the genealogy of Jesus, and
the
it
most
just
exciting part. Yeah.
Dude, hammered, dude, like just drunk as a skunk, bro. Like I couldn't read it because of the tears and the laughter that was coming out of my face.
Yeah.
Like this man begat this man and begat, and I was and I just couldn't handle just the level of glory. And that was the moment that was another moment for me of like deep revelation where like Jesus takes the most boring things, you know, like
Yeah.
and he just turns it into pure ecstasy, you know?
So you're saying that we can get whacked reading any part of the Bible? You don't just pick and choose your favorite parts, or?
I don't. I actually love all of the blood. I love it.
No, that's awesome, man. I love it. There's nothing like just cracking the Bible and just a wave of glory just hits your face, man. You know, even just sniffing it, you know.
Yeah.
Just
My Bible. I would sniff it.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the
outside of the room here. There we go. Okay,
yeah,
there we go.
that's the one right there.
I'm sure I've got a copy of my book I can
That's
hop
the
here
fun
somewhere.
one.
Oh, I do have a copy of your book. Here we go.
There we go. Amen. A little more plug and promo.
Plug and chug.
Yeah.
No, that's cool, man. So you were just unexpected, just got smacked out in the service that you weren't even sure about. You just and then you were drunk for days.
Yeah, drunk for days, dude. Actually, I'm pretty sure it was up to a month.
Yeah.
And I go through those seasons, like I don't want people to think. I love what was his name, Cole that was on last time.
Yeah.
I love what he was saying. Like, we don't want people to think that we're just floating around all the time, or that.
Yeah, we do real life stuff too.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I'm like, after this, I'm gonna go exercise. Like, I need to be kind of sober for that. Like I don't.
I'll rebuke.
While you rebuke me.
I'll rebuke everything.
Yeah. But I do go through those seasons where I'm just like, I can't get away from it. I even stop. Like, less Lord. Like, that was a joke that I used to hear, but then I actually started saying it serious. Like
it's funny for me. I just feels like there's waves. It's like we're always in the ocean, but sometimes you just get smacked by another wave.
Yeah. And I had can I share another encounter that just happened recently?
Please, man. Yeah.
So like I recently I got some hard news. There was a pastor that committed suicide, and I actually knew that guy. Like, I knew I was let me say I was like loose friends with him, and I hit some like just really low, like just sadness and stuff, and for some reason my brain just automatically wants to like go to theology, to like correct the current, which is great, like, which great thing to do to like, because like sometimes you just need a different perspective on how to look at something. And so I was actually, here's another plug for this podcast. I was listening to y'all's meditation one morning, and dude, that meditation is drunk. I absolutely.
Amen.
But I was just in the spirit and like with my prophetic imagination. Like, one of my places that I meet Jesus is right beside a river, and I'll kind of cut this short because there was a lot of conversation that was had, and but like I always see the Father and Holy Spirit in the river, right? Like playing around and inviting me in, and I always see Jesus like right beside me. But this one was like different because this time I saw the Father and Holy Spirit step up out of the river to come sit with me, in the dryness, if you will, like not in the river. And then they picked me up and they brought me in the river, and they just kind of like held me there.
Yeah.
And I don't want anyone to make a doctrine out of this.
Right.
This is just like held me there, and like I could feel it like on my skin, like not like I was wet, but I could feel like river currents on my skin as I'm laying in my bed listening to this meditation. And like I saw Jesus kind of look down at me, and he said, you've been looking at the river for a while now. You haven't spent a lot of time in it recently. And like there's
look at it.
Don't just look at it. Just jump in. And like, and he told me, he said, like, this is the river of healing. Like, this is the healing of the nations. And like, and I'm like, oh, there's a mention of that in the Bible in Revelation. I got that one. Like I said, don't make any doctrines out of this.
Right.
Yeah, there's I don't even know how I got onto this, but like there's studying, and there's also just enjoying it and like being in it, and like and sometimes I think I forget that, but like, dude, the whole day, bro, the whole day, speaking of just whacked out seasons, the whole day, like I was driving to work and I could feel just like river currents just like flowing like against me, and also I could feel like, I saw like in the spirit, I could see like waters like rushing through my veins, and dude, I was so drunk that I was on my way to work, but I had to stop at Kroger to get everybody candy,
That's how you know it's the Lord.
Yes. Yes. I don't know if this happens to you too, guys, but like I also whenever I'm really whacked and I'm just driving around, I look at signs and I just prophetically speak truth, you know.
Right.
I was at Kroger one time when I was picking up those gummy bears and those chocolate for all my coworkers, and I was at Kroger and I walked out and I saw a sign that said instant pickup, and I immediately said Golgotha. You know, like, oh, yes. Because I don't get prophetic words anymore. You know, like I just find them.
Just make them up. That's good, man. So much glory, bro. So much glory. Hallelujah.
Did you have anything else that you were wanting to say? Anything you absolutely had to get off your chest?
Or you could tell us a little bit about your book too, man. I was interested if.
Yeah, dude.
Whatever you want to share. It's just good to be with you.
I intentionally didn't bring a copy of my book with me downstairs just because I didn't.
You weren't going to be that guy.
You didn't want to accidentally grab it during the pile.
No, I didn't want to accidentally be that guy and grab it during the pile. I'm very drunk right now.
Man, bro.
Yes. My book is cool. I mean, Matt's book is better. There's actually some unique similarities in it too. Like Matt goes through like mystics throughout history, and I go through mystics. Yeah. And like that's so important. I think that this is a point I'd like to make. Not even necessarily on the realm of my book, but I think that we really need to hear that. Like I love that you talked about Sarah Edwards. I think I even texted you about that. Love Jonathan Edwards and Sarah Edwards' story. They are so drunk, dude, and it's so sad to me that everyone lumps Jonathan Edwards into the preaching of the sinners in the hands of the angry God. He only preached that twice, but he only finished it once because preached it in his own city, and he got good applause from everybody. Yeah. He in another city, and he's not like this great orator, but like he would just read. So he would write something and he would read from it, and like out of nowhere he's reading Sinners in the Hands of the Angry God, and he hears oh no! You know, like everyone starts tormenting. And everyone's like tormented, and he looks up and he's like, and he has to console the crowd, you know, like calm down. Oh, it's not that bad. And I can just imagine what he says, but he only preaches it in its fullness one time, and that dude walked in some heavy shingding, dude. If you get a chance to read his autobiography, and like, dude, just when he describes like just looking at the stars when he
he was more of a mystic than people realize.
Dude, but what's so crazy is he was actually a cessationist, but it is recorded history that during a time of revival where like at the churches, you know, like in England they have the pub, which is the center of town. In American history we had the churches, that was the center, and like we would put like signs and posts and stuff, and there would be like a board that had everyone's sickness and what they needed, right? For a long stint of time while Jonathan Edwards was there and preaching, that board was empty, which is like divine help, just help through the city, dude.
That's amazing. Isn't it interesting that so many people that like they'll start experiencing God, they're experiencing the glory. There's even a lot of people out there that are like having these experiences, but it hasn't changed their theology yet. You know, it hasn't. They'll still, if they get up and preach, they'll preach you into sobriety. But at the same time, like they're walking in so much glory and so much Jesus in their life, anyways. You know,
it's so true, yeah.
Sometimes our head just hasn't caught up with.
And that's where the river is, man. That's
yeah.
Dude, you know, like you just gotta be in it, and that's what's great about. I think what during the awakening, I think that what was probably going on in their minds, and like John Wesley and Jonathan Edwards and Whitefield, I think what was going on in their mind is probably a little angst from the Reformation, you know, a little bit of that, and but they were also deeply spiritual people. I mean, John Wesley. Preaching rock star, dude. He would bring the house down, literally. You know,
literally.
Yeah, so I think it's important that we look through history and see that these things, these manifestations, the drunk, the whack, is since day one.
Yeah,
Um,
that's good, bro.
and
That's
and
good.
I mean, I was even talking with a friend recently, and they were talking about the Kundalini spirit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and they look at like Bethel, and they look at like other charismatic churches where you know the shing ding ding is flowing, and they say, well, this is the Kundalini spirit. And dude, if you've ever watched Wild Wild Country, which is specifically about the Kundalini spirit, and
Yes.
that's what's going on at Bethel, you're out of your mind, dude.
Yeah. But we're so used to just some form of intellectual dogmatic Christianity that we haven't, I mean, I think even though Bill Johnson from Bethel said God shows up in the church and we think he's the devil.
well, sometimes it does show up in our theology as the devil. So
yeah, that too. Yeah. Or man, there's so much to wake up to, bro. There's so much to wake up to.
There is, man, and I'm excited, and I really do think that you and John and like my buddy Brett out in Charlotte, like I really do think that this marriage of the spirit and the truth, which is something that like I've been desiring for so long. Like I started my Christianity studying the crucifixion and encountering Jesus at the same time, you know? And like I really see like this marriage of the spirit and the truth like really taking hold in people, and really setting people free. And it's
You're fine.
like, oh, I'm sorry. Did I do something wrong?
I told them it was gonna happen.
They got here.
No, that's fine. Absolutely. I really do. I really do see this marriage of the spirit of the truth happening, you know, and like, and where people are having right theology, or what you can call right theology, you know, and also these great encounters that are so powerful. And
Here,
if you,
let's
okay.
Can you just say again what you said over the last minute or so?
Start back at the spirit, marriage of the spirit, and
Oh yeah,
the
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So, like, the way that I began my Christianity, the story that I shared was I was studying, and then I also had an encounter with Jesus that night, you know, and
Yeah.
I disconnected those
It's a good
two.
picture. Yeah.
Disconnected those two, and it's either you're studying or you're encountering Jesus.
Yes.
And so, like, if you're just studying, then you become like R.C. Sproul, or like, you know, there's these great theologians, but like they're dry as a bone in many different areas. I'm not trying to talk smack about R.C. Sproul. I was just, that was a theologian that came to mind.
Sure.
Or you're a charismatic that's having a lot of experiences, but they're not filtered through the truth.
Yeah. Exactly.
And they're creating doctrines. Like I said earlier, don't make doctrines out of spiritual encounters, but they're creating doctrines out of these encounters. What we really do need is just a great marriage between the spirit of truth and the truth itself, you know, and correct thinking and correct theology, if you will. I mean, we're all learning. We're all kind of heretics here and there, but like, but like,
I know I am.
yes, I definitely am in some areas, but like I'm slowly weeding it out, you know.
No, that's great, man. I think that's an excellent point you're making there, and just the testimonies of the experiences you're sharing too. Really, I connect with that, man, because sometimes I've had an experience and then only gotten the revelation of it later. Sometimes I get like a revelation and only experience it later, and but however it comes, like to know that we have the fullness of Jesus to experience, and that doesn't preclude or exclude any part of our being or part of our, you know, it's the same talking about our divinity and our humanity, you know. It's like, so why do we have to emphasize one or the other? Why do we only have to emphasize spirit? Why versus natural? All that. It's like, let's be the full person. Let's experience the full person, know the full person.
Yeah. I mean, that's what the early church was fighting for, like the person of Jesus Christ. I know somebody commented on a status of mine recently, and they were like, "I don't think we need the Nicene Creed anymore." I don't know. Yeah. And I was actually talking to Brett recently, and he said that you had someone say something like that too. I don't remember how you responded. Did someone say like we don't need the creeds anymore or something like that?
Well, you get that stuff all the time. Or just people say we don't need theology or whatever,
Yeah.
Altogether. Well, I liked Zach posted something the other day that was just talking. I think it was a Torrance quote, but talking about not disconnecting the person from the work of Christ. And that's another way to look at it too. A lot of glory.
Yeah, there's a lot of whack on.
There's nothing more whack than studying good theology.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
You read it and you're like, how do you guys even write this? Like
there's nothing more whacked. The creeds have never been more whacked, and good theology has never been more whacked.
If it's not whacked, it's not good theology.
It's right, dude, right.
Well, anyway, dude, we try to keep these to about 30 minutes, man.
Yeah, sure.
We're gonna wrap it up, but thank you so much for joining us, dude, and it's awesome. And I just recommend any of our viewers check out Shane, check out his book, and it's good, man. Thanks for being with us, bro.
Dude, thanks for having me. Like I said, I'm pretty sure I invited myself, and I'll invite myself next time.
Well, thanks for being high on God, bro.
You're welcome. It's my deep pleasure.
Well, thanks a lot, Shane, and blessings, man, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, man. Later.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to the High on God podcast with Matthew Spinks and Zachary Paul Pratt. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and check out the accompanying YouTube vlog where we'll have short guided meditations on the glory of Jesus, as well as additional random coverage and updates from the God High. Also, if you believe in the message we're putting out to the world, consider donating or becoming a monthly partner at www.thefirehouseprojects.com/donate so that we can spread the authentic, inebriating good news of Jesus. Alrighty then, until next time, stay high on the supply inside that never runs dry, Jesus Christ.